Chicago fans, buckle up because things are starting to heat up again at Hallis Hall. And this time, the buzz is all about a potential move that could completely reshape the Bears' backfield. There's a lot of talk around the league right now, and the name at the center of it all is Breece Hall. Yeah, the same Breece Hall who's been grinding it out in New York, trying to stay patient while the Jets keep finding new ways to lose football games. After another tough start to their season, it sounds like frustration is starting to boil over, and the Bears might just be in a position to take advantage of that. Now, let's start with what's actually going on with Hall. The guy's been balling out individually, but the Jets are stuck at 0 wins through 5 games. And when you've got that kind of talent in the backfield and nothing to show for it in the standings, it's natural to start wondering if a change of scenery might be best for everyone involved. When reporters asked Breece about whether he needed a fresh start, he didn't exactly deny it. He said he's focused on winning football games, that he doesn't have much time left to prove who he can be in this league. And honestly, that kind of answer speaks volumes. You can feel that frustration, that hunger. He's a competitor who wants to win, not just survive another lost season. From the Jets' point of view, the logic to move him actually makes sense. He's in a contract year, the team's not contending, and he's putting up some of the best numbers of his career. He's averaging over 5 yards per carry. He looks fully healthy again, and he's only 24 years old. But here's the problem. Running backs don't exactly have a long shelf life in the NFL, and with all the miles he's already logged, it's fair to ask if New York really wants to pay him big money moving forward. The Jets could hang on and hope for a compensatory draft pick, but that's risky business, especially if they plan to spend in free agency. So, if you're the Jets front office, why not at least listen to offers? You might not be building a contender right now, but you can start stacking draft capital for the future. And that's where Chicago enters the conversation. The Bears' offense has shown flashes this year. The passing game looks more dynamic. Caleb Williams is starting to find rhythm. But the running game? That's a different story. DeAndre Swift just hasn't been the spark plug the team hoped he'd be. The yards per carry are down, the explosiveness isn't there, and despite all the effort, the production just doesn't match the potential. You can see the frustration on the sideline. The Bears are averaging just over 100 rushing yards per game, and a big chunk of that comes from Caleb scrambling. That's not a sustainable formula. You need a reliable back who can carry the load, punish defenses between the tackles, and open up play action for your young quarterback. Breece Hall checks all those boxes. He's physical, he's explosive, and he can catch passes out of the backfield. Over the last few seasons, even in a struggling offense, he's been one of the few bright spots in New York. 17 receptions in just 5 games this season, over 500 receiving yards per year on average before that. Those are serious dual-threat numbers. And now that he looks fully recovered from that knee injury that slowed him down last year, he's playing like a top 10 running back in the league again. If the Bears want to make life easier for Caleb and get back to being that ground-and-pound, balanced attack that Chicago fans love, this might be the guy to make it happen. But here's the catch. What's the price? That's the tricky part. Hall's value is high because he's performing at an elite level, but his contract is expiring. No one's giving up a premium pick for a 1-year rental, especially not at running back. If the Jets come calling asking for a 3rd-round pick, the Bears should hang up the phone immediately. But a 5th-rounder? Maybe a conditional pick that could move up to a 4th if certain performance marks are met? That's where things get interesting. For a team like Chicago that's still building and has some flexibility with draft assets, that's the kind of calculated risk that can pay off big. Now, let's be clear. This only makes sense if the Bears' ground game continues to sputter. Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles have already shown patience this season. They believe in their scheme, and they've tried to get Swift going. The bye week was supposed to help the offensive line reset and the blocking schemes get sharper. Washington, the next opponent on the schedule, sits right in the middle of the pack against the run. That's a perfect test. If Chicago still can't find any rhythm on the ground against a defense like that, it might be time to make the call to New York. Because at some point, if you're serious about competing, you can't just keep doing the same thing and expect different results. Look, nobody's saying DeAndre Swift doesn't care or isn't giving it his all. Ben Johnson even said before the bye that Swift's effort and attitude have been exactly what they want. But the numbers don't lie. Less than 3.5 yards per carry and only 2 rushing touchdowns through 4 games just isn't cutting it. Caleb's been doing his part, the passing game's been improving, but the offense needs balance. That's what Hall could bring: balance, power, and a new dimension of threat that opponents would have to respect. So, imagine this scenario. You go into Washington, you test the run game one more time. If it still looks flat, you pick up the phone. You offer a fifth-round pick, maybe a late conditional pick to sweeten the deal, and you get a guy who could immediately make a difference. He's got fresh legs, a chip on his shoulder, and everything to prove in a contract year. He's not just running for yards, he's running for his next big payday, and that kind of motivation is contagious. Sometimes that's all a team needs to flip the switch. Because let's face it, this Bears team has the pieces. Caleb Williams is showing flashes of brilliance. The offensive line is improving, and the defense has been more disciplined week by week. What's missing is that reliable running game that can take the pressure off the young quarterback and control the tempo of games. Chicago has always been a city that thrives on physical football, cold weather games, hard hits, and grinding out wins on the ground. Breece Hall feels like the kind of player who fits that identity perfectly. Of course, timing matters. You don't want to rush into a deal if the offense suddenly finds its groove after the bye. But if not, and if the same struggles show up again, then there's no harm in being aggressive. This isn't about making a splashy move just to make headlines. It's about addressing a real weakness before it starts costing the team wins. Hall could be the missing piece that turns red zone field goals into touchdowns and helps the Bears keep drives alive when the weather gets ugly later in the season. Now, if you really think about it, trading for Breece Hall wouldn't just be about fixing the running game. It would send a message that this front office believes the Bears can compete right now, not in some distant rebuild timeline. It would show that Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson are serious about surrounding Caleb Williams with as much support as possible. Because if you look around the league, the teams that help their young quarterbacks the most are the ones who build strong running attacks. You can't ask a rookie to throw 50 times a game and carry the entire offense on his shoulders. You need a ground game that defenses actually fear, one that opens up play action, keeps drives alive, and keeps the pressure off the passer. That's where Hall could completely transform the identity of this offense. Let's not forget, Hall isn't just some power runner who takes hits and moves the chains. He's a complete back. He can bounce outside, make people miss an open space, and line up as a receiver when needed. In New York, even in a bad offensive system, he found ways to make plays. Now imagine him in Chicago, in a more creative offense with Caleb keeping defenses honest with his legs and arm talent. That combination could be deadly. You could run more option looks, get the linebackers biting, and suddenly the Bears playbook opens up in a way we haven't seen all year. The running game could finally complement the passing game instead of being an afterthought. The other thing that stands out about Breece Hall is his mentality. He's not just putting up numbers, he's doing it with intensity. You can see that chip on his shoulder every time he hits the hole. He's tired of losing, and he wants to prove he can be part of something bigger. That's exactly the kind of energy a young locker room like Chicago's needs right now. Sometimes you need that spark, a guy who comes in hungry, who's got something to prove, and who lifts everyone around him just by the way he competes. That's what Hall could bring. The Bears have talent, but they need that urgency, that fire, that edge to push them forward. Hall embodies that perfectly. Now, it's fair to question the cost and the timing. Running backs can be tricky investments. They take a lot of hits, and their production windows can close fast. But Hall is still young, still in his prime, and still improving. If the Bears could land him without giving up a high draft pick, it's a smart, low-risk move. A fifth-rounder or maybe a conditional fourth is a fair offer for a player who could help right away. And if it works, you can always talk extension later. You don't have to commit long-term immediately. Just see what he brings to the offense and how it changes the dynamic. If he performs like the top 10 back he's shown he can be, then you have a real decision to make next offseason. It's also worth mentioning how much easier life could get for Caleb Williams with a back like Hall behind him. So far, Caleb has had to play almost perfect football for the Bears to win games. He's constantly under pressure, often throwing on 2nd and long or 3rd and 8. That's tough for any quarterback, let alone a rookie adjusting to NFL speed. But with Hall in the mix, you can change that rhythm completely. You start setting up 2nd and 4s instead of 2nd and 9s. You start keeping defenses guessing, forcing them to stack the box, and that opens up big plays downfield for guys like DJ, Moore, and Keenan Allen. It's a domino effect. One strong runner can change the entire flow of an offense. And if we're being honest, the Bears' current running situation just hasn't lived up to expectations. DeAndre Swift is talented, but something isn't clicking. Whether it's the blocking, the play design, or just lack of rhythm, it hasn't worked. The numbers are flat, the big plays are rare, and the consistency just isn't there. Ben Johnson knows that. He's one of the smartest offensive minds in football, and if he can't get this run game going after the bye week, he's not going to sit around waiting. He's going to look for solutions. Adding someone like Hall would be a statement move, not just a quick fix, but a shift toward balance and physicality. Of course, every trade comes with some risk. Maybe Hall needs a few games to get comfortable. Maybe the offensive line still has issues. But even then, you'd rather take a swing at improving than stay stagnant. The Bears have been patient for long enough. They've built through the draft, they've developed their quarterback, and now it's time to start taking steps toward becoming a real contender. A player like Hall fits that timeline perfectly. He's young enough to grow with this core, but experienced enough to make an impact right away. You don't often get a chance to add that kind of player at a position of need midseason. Think about the bigger picture, too. If the Bears can establish a reliable ground game, that helps the defense as well. Time of possession improves, the defense stays fresher, and you start controlling games instead of chasing them. Chicago has a strong defensive identity already, but the offense hasn't done enough to complement that. Breece Hall could be the piece that ties it all together. He brings explosiveness, consistency, and a mentality that fits the city, tough, determined, no excuses. That's the Chicago way. And it's not just about stats or highlights. It's about moments. Picture a cold December night at Soldier Field, playoff hopes on the line, and Hall breaking off a 30-yard run to seal the win. That's the kind of impact player he can be. Those are the kinds of plays that define teams and seasons. Every great Bears offense, from Walter Payton's days to the bruising units of the early 2000s, had a running back who could set the tone. Hall could be the next one in that line. Not a legend yet, but a guy who could carve out his place in this city's football story. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on our Chicago Bears. And don't be shy. Drop your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Rumors are swirling in Chicago as the NFL community buzzes with the news. Myles Garrett, the fearsome defensive end, has reportedly arrived at the Bears, and insiders suggest he is already reshaping the team's defensive front. While nothing has been officially confirmed, sources close to the organization hint that Garrett's presence could signal a seismic shift for a franchise long searching for defensive identity. Fans and analysts alike are imagining the impact of Garrett lining up on the edge, where his combination of size, speed, and relentless pursuit of quarterbacks could transform the Bears' defensive schemes. Social media is ablaze with speculation, with pundits debating how Garrett's arrival might alter matchups across the NFC North. Some suggest the team's front seven, already known for toughness, could now become one of the most feared units in the league, capable of disrupting even the league's most potent offenses. Whispers in the locker room reportedly point to a new energy and intensity, with teammates seemingly inspired by the presence of a player of Garrett's caliber. Scouts say that when a player of his talent joins a squad, it changes not just the XS and OS, but the very culture of the team. The buzz isn't limited to Chicago. Rival coaches are said to be rethinking game plans, anticipating the havoc Garrett could unleash on opposing quarterbacks. While contracts, official announcements, and photos are still scarce, the rumor mill refuses to cool down. Bears fans, long accustomed to off-season surprises, are dreaming of a defensive renaissance, fueled by Garrett's known ability to dominate the line of scrimmage and make game-changing plays. Could this be the start of a new era in Chicago? One where the defense becomes the heartbeat of the team? If the chatter proves true, the NFL might be witnessing the birth of one of its most intimidating defensive fronts in years. Whether it's fact or simply fervent speculation, one thing is clear. The mere suggestion of Myles Garrett joining the Bears has reignited hope and excitement. In a league hungry for headlines and star power, this potential move has all the makings of a story that could dominate the off-season narrative. Fans, pundits, and rivals alike are watching closely, knowing that if even half of these rumors materialize, the Bears' defensive line could become a nightmare for quarterbacks across the league. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Chicago Bears, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.